Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. Big welcome back to Stop SIS, Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I am here with Rachel Timothy. And today we are going to be chatting a bit about the second side of the coin. Now, if you listened a few episodes back, we talked about the healing journey is like two sides of the coin, right? There's one side where it's like you've got to kind of purge the junk out. You got to talk about what happened. You've got to get it out of your system. We don't want to keep stuffing it because that's when we explode and we've got negative coping skills and it just doesn't work, right? So there's a season where we want to purge the junk and really be open and honest about what we've experienced and how it's impacted us. And then the second side of the coin is building that dreaming muscle again and retraining your brain, retraining your nervous system to create a new life for yourself. And so we realized a few episodes ago that we didn't actually really talk about that a ton. And so we thought today might be a good day to do so. We've had some really cool things happening within our graduate group. We still stay in touch with the survivors that have gone through 90-day U-turn. And there's some really power, like it's so fun to hear how they're continuing to use the skills that they've learned months later. And it's continuing to impact them in a positive way. So, Rachel, how do you want to start? Do you want to share maybe when you about when you started building your dreaming muscle again, or when you decided you were ready to do that? Like, was there a time where you go, okay, I'm done talking about this? Or was like, how did that go for you? Or is it always still both, you know?
So I feel like really, even when I first met you, I didn't have a dreaming muscle at all. And I think
one quick question, even though you wrote your book, was that not a dream? Was that really more of the healing journey?
There was really no dreaming in that. It's, don't even know how to describe it, except it just was kind of flowing out of me. I do feel like trauma survivors, God kind of gives some extra talents at times to kind of help you through, whether it's art or music or writing or whatever. And that was one of the things that I really felt like God was giving me to just write. And so it wasn't a dream, it was healing, because I didn't even know if I was going to publish it.
Okay. So at first it was really just part of the purging process.
Yeah. And there was a part of me that was like, if this could help somebody else, maybe someday I'll publish it. But I never felt safe enough, you know, all those things. But come 2021, whenever I did your program in the very beginning, like I started off wanting to stop my bad coping skill of an eating disorder. And once that was released, then it was like the fog lifted and I could find my dreaming muscle and start to work it out a little bit, if that makes sense.
So do you think it was stopping the negative coping skills or starting positive coping skills that gave you the release, like the ability to release?
So that wasn't my only negative coping skill, but it was my biggest one. And so I think gradually the negative coping skills are getting less. So I think it's a mixture of both. I think letting go of that one big one and then being able to see clearer and think clearer and feel clearer helped me to want to dream more and to like have more of that and less of the other.
Yeah.
And so it's been a process.
Yeah. Yeah. So the negative coping skills are things we do before we start the healing journey, right? And then as you start to purge, I mean, it sounds like even though you had gone to counseling, you had done a lot of the healing work, you had written your book, you were still actively utilizing the negative coping skills, even though, you know, your brain didn't really want to, but you still were in that mode. And so we really needed to retrain not only your automatic thinking, but also your nervous system so that it wouldn't automatically go back to that.
Yeah. So I remember being at Selah House, an eating disorder facility, and them telling a lot of us that your eating disorder served a purpose. Like, I don't want you to necessarily like hate it or hate yourself for having it. It served a purpose. It got you through a really hard time in your life. But now, in order to move forward, we need to let it go and we need to be able to start phase 2 without it because it was taking up so much space in my mind that I couldn't think of anything else.
Right. And if you physically, I mean, we talk about like a pillar of the dream life, right? It's feeling good. And if you're not feeling good, it's so distracting. So if you have the brain fog and your body doesn't have energy, it can be really distracting. Like you can't go after your dreams if you want to sleep all day.
Well, and what you've taught us too is how addictions, which a negative coping skill is an addiction, that's where all of your joy is found. Then you don't even know how to get joy in anything else. So you're not going to be able to dream.
Yeah. Yeah, addiction is fascinating when you connect it to the dopamine, because as the addiction gets stronger and you get more dopamine when you do the addiction, whether it's drinking or drugs or eating disorders or anything, right? Then you need more and more and more and more of it to get that same level of dopamine. And you don't find joy in going for a walk or riding a bike or journaling or hanging out with friends because your body has been trained. And so when you take a look at it like biologically, it's like, okay, well then let's retrain our body and retrain our nervous system and retrain our automatic thoughts. And so the cool thing is that it's possible. The tricky part is that it's not a flip of the switch and it does take some time. So what are some things that you have done to start retraining your brain, retraining your nervous system?
Definitely working on my subconscious thoughts and listening to meditations, making sure everything that I put in my mind is helpful. It's positive affirmations, it's scripture, putting myself around people who speak life and speak truth. Even there for a while, it seemed like when I was down and I was struggling with my reality, there was a comfort in seeing other people's stories that were similar. But in some ways, it was like too much of a comfort, like too much of a, oh, okay, so this is just us. This is what happens when this happens to you. And so
There
I
was a
think
bit of victim thinking and
yes.
staying stuck in the mud and going, well, this is just who I am, which
Yeah.
is that fixed mindset.
Or I don't really even know. Like, I think it was a negative coping skill because I would read it or I would, hear a story about somebody who was in something similar and I would feel validated, I guess. But in the same way, I would feel triggered. I would become even more down, like it caused a spiral. And so filling my mind with truth and life and all of that was super big.
Yeah. It's really interesting to notice what starts the spiral. And I think when you can identify what that is and how that impacts you, it gives you the power to then choose something different.
Yes. Yeah. I think also when you're putting yourself around positive people who are like truthful, then they can give you advice and share like truths about maybe areas that you still need work on. And that helps push you in the right direction as well. Whenever you're around people who are shaming you and guilting you and treating you poorly, it adds to that defeated feeling.
Yeah. I just want to add too, I came back from a dream life adventure, and it's a retreat, and we live in this world of dreams in my world. The people in our community are growth focused. They're excited for each other. We're like collaborating. We believe in each other, that kind of thing. And so you walk into this room, and after 4 days, like, you are seriously shifted on a cellular level. Like, you start to believe those things too.
Yeah.
And a girl was in this space, right, for 4 days. And she got to the airport, and the flights were all messed up, and it got canceled, and they couldn't find her luggage and anything. She called her sister, who was watching her kids, and her sister started berating her, blaming her for all of the mess or whatever. And I think, and what we said was, it's really fascinating to come from this place of dreaming where, like, I would never respond that way to another human being. And
Right.
and neither would any of the other ladies there. We would all just handle it much differently. So for her to go from that situation to then hearing her sister berating her, in my mind, I thought, this is just a really good clue. Like, you now know what drama looks like. You know what dreams look like. And because you experienced that with your sister, you now know what drama or chaos or negativity that looks like. And what she said was, that used to be her normal. That drama, that chaos, that negativity, that used to be her normal. That used to be what she expected. But now that she knows differently,
Yes.
she can see the difference.
Yes.
And I think that when you're stuck in those negative coping skills, and you are reliving the trauma, and you are reading stories that may make you feel like you're not alone, but also kind of keep you stuck in this cycle, you don't know that there's a difference, and that that there is another side of the coin, so to speak. And so when you start utilizing positive coping skills and incorporating your environment, shifting your environment, making changes, doing things that you want to do, whether it's small steps or big steps, you start to realize that there's another way to live.
Yes.
And then when you go back to those negative coping skills or around those negative people, you can truly see a difference, and then decide, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, you
Or
become a different person.
you become a different person. Or when you slip back into that, it won't last.
And you recognize it immediately.
Yes.
And you start using the tools that you had gained along the way. Yes.
Because I still have stinking thinking thoughts, and there's times I want to screw it, and I'm going to go work at McDonald's. Like, life's not perfect all the time, right?
Yes.
But I also know if I'm having a down day, it won't last.
Yeah.
I go to bed early. I call a friend. I take my dogs for a walk. You know what I mean? And I trust that it will shift, because I've lived in the world of dreams for a long time too.
Yeah. And I noticed when our survivors left our retreat, like it was the world of dreams. And then you have that moment of going home and seeing the world differently. And there's a lot of choices that you get to make at that moment, of if you'll bounce back to where you were, or am I going to change who I am and who I'm around. I remember for years, I wanted to use my story to help others, because I know I'm not the only one in this life of struggling with what I had, and so I tried, but I was never very successful, because I still had so much work to do on me. And then when I started to do this work of living in my dreams, like changing my thought processes, rerouting my mind to think differently about certain situations, getting strength, finding freedom, like all of these tools, once I started doing that, it's like people were sitting at my feet saying, "How'd you do it? Please, like, tell me your secret. How are you able to do these things?" But it was amazing, the shift, like just simply living in your dreams can change everything.
So the first thing to ask yourself, if you're like, okay, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Is, what do I really want? What do I really want? Like, what do I really want life to look like? And get super clear on this. This is an exercise we do several times in different ways with a 90-day U-turn. How do you want your day to look? How do you want to feel? How do you want your relationships to be? Like all areas of your life, asking yourself, what do I really want? And getting really clear about that. Because oftentimes people will tell me, I don't know what I want. I just know I don't want to be here anymore. And so in order to have, to set your internal GPS, to start taking steps in that direction, we have to gain some clarity on what it is that we want. And that won't happen without space. In fact, I had a 90-day U-turn group last night, and one of the girls was like, I so appreciate having this conversation because you know what? I'm not having it with my coworkers. And I'm not having this conversation around the dinner table with my family or in the grocery store when I'm running errands. Like we just don't. It's not a normal part of our everyday. So to create the space to actually allow those dreams to bubble up is important.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
And then the other question to ask yourself is, what brings me joy? So like, what do I really want life to look like? But then also, what do I enjoy? What's important?
For me, whenever I was in the darkest moments, I was living life a victim to my day. Like whatever came, I was going to try to deal with it and as best as I possibly could. And that's really how I saw each day. Like, okay, I'm just going to have to deal with whatever comes. And it was never a very hopeful feeling. And now I'm taking control of my day and I'm deciding what happens in my day. I don't have to live on defense. I now get to live on offense and take control of things. And that was huge.
Yeah, that's talk about taking your ownership back.
Right.
And just owning your time. Like, how do I want to spend my time? And obviously, it's not like perfect. Like sometimes we got to go to work and sometimes we got to do things we don't want to do. But the intention behind it all, like I'm going to work for this greater purpose.
Yes.
Or I'm going to exercise for this greater purpose, or I'm doing these things because I know it's taking me somewhere, not just because it's what happened to show up that day.
Yeah. I remember saying to Granny, like, this happened today and this happened and then this happened. And her being like, okay, but what did you do today to take control of your day and to live your life to the fullest? And I would be like, did you not hear what I just said happened? Like that's bad. Why are we talking about what you know what I mean? I couldn't even get my mind out of that spot of, don't you see what happened though? This is why I'm sad.
Yeah. I sometimes would ignore you and you would tell me stuff like that.
Oh, good to know.
I would just go, all right, so now what?
I do kind of remember that. And it would be like, okay, so I'm taking this further than I should. All right.
Well, I just think again, what we put attention to grows, right?
Yeah.
And you haven't done it very often, but there were times where I was just like, well, okay, so what about this over here? So knowing what brings you joy, and then the question, right, is putting it on your calendar. So then you start putting stuff on your calendar that brings you joy, and that is part of you taking your control back. What are some things you put back on your calendar?
Goodness. Don't know. I'm trying to think.
Did you always get up at like 5 a.m. to read?
No, I did not. I didn't have the energy to get up at 5 a.m. to have me time. But yeah, that is something that I do every day, no matter what. And that totally starts my whole day off right.
Yeah, that's the best.
I guess just scheduling a healthier mindset with food.
Yeah.
I changed that on my schedule. As now I exercise at least every other day.
You believe it?
No.
So Rachel, as you guys may or may not remember, got a knee surgery and she now can ride her bike.
Yeah, I couldn't do that for years because the rotation hurt my knee so bad.
Yeah.
I'm riding the Tennessee Hills, let me tell you, and
Yeah.
it's stinking hard, but it feels really, really good. In fact, this was kind of big. The other day I had kind of a knock my breath out of me moment, and I got on my bike and I went for a bike ride and I cried the whole way through. But when I got home, my endorphins were pumping and I could think clearer. Whereas before I would have gone in my closet and I would have shut the door and I would have been there a while.
Yeah. Yeah. You were able to utilize more, you have more healthy coping skills because of the knee surgery, which again, sometimes the how, we don't know how it's going to happen. but you had said, I want to exercise. I want to be able to play basketball. I want to do these things. And now you are.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
so
God
cool.
is so good.
Yeah,
It's
it's so cool. So the things that bring you joy are oftentimes good coping skills, healthy coping skills for you, whether it's exercise, going to lunch with a friend, taking your dogs for a walk. I mean, I always say crochet. I don't know. My mom used to crochet, like join a crochet group, like find a hobby that you have. We have a girl right now who's getting back into photography,
Yeah.
and she is going for walks and taking beautiful pictures, and it's really cool to see. So those things that bring you joy, add them back to your calendar. And the cool thing is your mood is going to follow.
Yes.
Now, hear us out. We are not saying feel better and then go do something fun or
Mhm.
do something that fills up your cup or utilize these healthy coping skills. We're saying do the healthy coping skills and then the emotions will follow. And I think that's a huge part of the process is we don't need to wait until we're thinking more positively or we feel better. We do the action first.
Mhm.
Everything else catches up.
Yeah. And I think another great tool that you could use, start asking people to coffee, go to
Yeah.
lunch. Like so many people are lonely and they wish somebody would ask them to go to coffee or to go to lunch. Be the one to initiate it. You won't regret it.
Yeah. When was the last time you were like, well, that was a waste of time? No.
No.
Especially if they're a positive person. And if you're far away, schedule Zoom. Like when you moved into your new house, we scheduled a Zoom with some friends and you showed us everything and walked us around. And, I think that just be mindful of that. It's an idea. Most people desire connection and don't have enough good connection in their life.
Correct. And then the more that you're involved in other people's lives, you're not solely focused on your own stuff.
Yes.
You're carrying burdens and they're carrying yours and you're learning relationships and it's
Yeah.
a great thing.
One of the things I used to do with those in experiencing depression, is we would talk about ways they can give back because it gets them out of their own sorrow a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've heard with those in 90-day U-turn is they really appreciate the breakout rooms where they can hear other people's stories, because it reminds them that they're not alone and like it's not just about them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's some camaraderie that happened. Like we all have the same struggles at just in different times in our life often.
100%. So the first time I did your 90-day U-turn, I was not the trauma group yet because that had not been created yet. So it was just anybody who wanted, a 90-day shift. And I remember being so self-conscious about my story because it is so heavy and thinking, nobody's going to understand the amount of pain that I've been through or what I'm struggling with. So I'll just keep all of that quiet. And I will never forget the very first person that I had a Zoom call with. She was battling is it leukemia, I think, or no, maybe it's
Hodgkin's lymphoma.
lymphoma. Her husband just left, took everything that she had. Her daughter just had a miscarriage. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like everybody has something.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. And it I don't want to say it was a comfort, but it was a community that I could sit in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of takes you out of yourself for a minute.
Yes. Yes.
Now, another thing we want to talk about, so the dreaming, like creating your dream life, right? Is what do you really want? Getting clear, putting things that bring you joy consistently in your calendar, because when life does happen, as it will, when you're going for bike rides continuously, you'll think about it. If you didn't even have a bike, you couldn't go for a bike ride, right? If it wasn't in your wheelhouse, you wouldn't have done that. You would have gone back to your closet because that's what you knew, but you had a new skill to use because you had already been doing it. And so doing these healthy coping skills or positive habits, all that kind of stuff in your normal everyday is going to, number one, keep your mood and endorphins up and dopamine up, but it will also, when life does happen, you'll have something at your fingertips, and it's retraining your nervous system to do something different. The other thing we want to talk about is the thoughts that can get you there as well. So we had a girl today who had a really big hearing, and she certainly could have spiraled. In fact, she said she was starting to, she'd had these intrusive thoughts and she'd start going, it's that monkey mind, as I call it. But she stopped them.
Yeah,
So
she
she
said she was
noticed
in
it,
prayer.
she stopped it, and she filled her space with worship music. She basically had to be her own cheerleader, which means it didn't matter what thought she had to focus on what it is she wanted instead.
Yes.
And she felt peace in the midst of the storm, and it ended up going great.
Yeah, it was so incredible because she would tell you 2 years ago that would not have been the case.
Right.
But she's a different person. She's on her second round now of 90-day U-turn, and she is a different person. So I think the mind is huge. If I go back to the lady that I had my very first 90-day U-turn with and all those things that she listed, and then after she listed it, she told me the reason I'm here is because I want to write a book on joy. And I was just like, what? Like, that's incredible. Like, you have every reason not to have joy, but she had the mindset, no, I have joy and I'm going to move forward with that in my life. It was incredible. So your mindset's huge.
It is. And so taking those thoughts captive, really focusing on what it is that you want. And then the third piece of this puzzle is doing something different. You can think about the same, you get up and you brush your teeth and you don't even think about it. We want kind of that same automatic thinking with these positive coping skills that are taking us where we want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you find that you have a negative coping skill and you're consistently doing it at the same time or after the similar trigger or something, we want to break that pattern and do something different instead. So it could be going a different way home from work. It could be, going for a walk after work instead of just coming home to sit. There's a lot of things that you could do, but noticing when you're doing the undesirable behavior and then triggering yourself to do something different instead, to replace it. We want to replace it with something, and you want that replacement to be helpful.
Yeah. And so it maybe it's not even just a behavior. It could be the narrative that you're telling yourself in your mind. I know I've had conversations with several survivors when they're anxious and they're worried about something, and I'll say, okay, let's think about how this is going to work out. And their response will be, but what if it doesn't?
Yeah.
Well, okay, yes, but that's always a possibility. But when you focus on the opposite side, like changing what you tell yourself about each situation.
Yes, absolutely. Because neither of those things are happening right now. It's not working out necessarily right now. And it's also not working. Like right now, you're here in the moment. So you can use your imagination in either way. But if you want to design your dream life, we want to start imagining yourself experiencing success. We want to imagine yourself seeing yourself 3 steps ahead, writing the book. I brought my book to the dream dinner, and anyway, but like those are the things that really start to shift you, because we become and we get what we expect.
Yeah. And it's not that you're imagining so that poof, it happens. It's you're imagining and it changes you from the inside out to where then you impact your circumstances.
Yeah. So we had a girl who had wanted to go back to college. She thought about it and she was basically like, yeah, right. Never going to happen. So it got put on the back burner, right? Because that's what happens when our belief isn't there. So she came to the dream dinner acting as though she already got her degree. She showed it to us. She talked about it as though she already got, she went back to school. She was so excited. She graduated, and these are the opportunities she has now. And guess what? Within like 6 months, she is back in school and got a scholarship and is like doing the thing. And it wasn't until she started actually thinking, what do I really want? And what would it look like if I got there? What would that really look like? And guess what? She was able to start taking steps in that direction because she could finally see herself there.
Yeah.
Part of the visualization is shifting your self-image, and that really is where the fruit is born from.
Yeah, it's really not hard. It's just doing it.
Yeah. And it's way easier to do it in community.
That believes in you.
Yeah.
Well, because this same person has another side of a community or whatever in her life that was telling her, there's no way you're going to be able to do this.
Right.
You're not smart enough. You can't do this. And so it depends on so much who you put yourself around.
Yeah.
And she's doing it, and she's doing great. She's rocking it.
And to see her glow like Cheezo Pete's, you guys. I mean, this is why this work is so much fun, is because we get to see the fruit of the effort that these girls are putting in, and they truly are shifting, and they're handling stress better. They're going after it. They're being, they're getting jobs and cars and apartments, and it's so cool to see the growth. And then of course the inner strength that builds after doing things they previously thought were too difficult.
Yep. And when life happens, because life always does, they have tools and they have a community who's right there.
Yeah. So designing your dream life, and this other like side of the coin, is really about gaining clarity on who you want to be and then taking steps to get there.
Mhm.
And it's not rocket science. I'm trying to even think if there's another thing that we do on this journey is really connecting with your life purpose. That's an interesting one, because again, it becomes a filter for decision making. One girl came to 90 Day U-Turn a few weeks ago, and she said, I got asked to take on a volunteer position at church that was going to take up a lot of time. And she said, and I said, no. And I said, so why did you say no? And she said, because it doesn't align with where I want to go. It would take up too much time and it no longer aligns. And I said, well, that's interesting. 2 years ago, what would you have done? And she said, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have known what I wanted. So if an opportunity came, I would have just said, yes, just like the wind, like, oh, okay, must, and she was overworked and had too many plates spinning and stressed because she kept saying yes to anything that came, because she didn't know what she really wanted. So she couldn't create those priorities.
Yeah.
So knowing what you want, she was now able to say yes to the good things and no to some things that just were no longer in alignment or wouldn't support her goals.
Yeah. So, and when you explain about alignment, the head, heart, feet, like how you talk about in 90 Day U-Turn, if it is anywhere off balance and not in alignment, your whole world is chaotic. And
Yeah.
you're like, why? I don't get it. And that's where getting in alignment with 90 days is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what she was able to do. She's able to say, this is what she's retiring from teaching soon, and she wants to start working with teenagers and all these things. And she's got these she's excited about the next phase of her life. And so when this opportunity came, she was able to prioritize.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't have known to do that if she hadn't gained connection. So the life purpose question, number one, helps you to connect with that deeper sense of soul, but also it helps you to navigate life. Is this in alignment with where I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, it might still be a good thing, but it's not for me right now.
Right. And then you gain confidence with each decision, and you don't have to, I know for me, like apologizing to somebody because I'm saying no. I'm confident enough to know who I am and what I want to be doing that I can say no. I know when I walked away from the last organization I was a part of, I was beginning to realize this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what God has called me to do. And realizing I think I know what it is and it's not this, gave me a strength and a confidence to leave that and pursue something without being apologetic. Like this, it's not something bad. It's
Right.
It's what's in you.
There's a ding happening on my computer. I'm trying to mute it. I don't even know where it's coming from. So hopefully that muted it. Sorry if you guys could hear all that. Ding, 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 ding.
I think I only heard it twice, but
Okay. But yeah, you're right. The stronger you get and the more you realize they're just going to ask someone else, it's really not a big deal.
yeah. And then in the same sense, when you ask somebody to do something and they say no, instead of taking it personally, it's like, oh, yeah, I get it. That's not in alignment with what you're doing. Totally fine. I'll ask somebody else.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, I must be a bad person.
Right. Then the story that you tell yourself changes in relation to others because you've already changed the story about yourself to you.
Yeah. Right. And so when you think of the world and all of the unhealthy people who are not in alignment, trying to carry on relationships and conversations and life together, it is chaos. So come to our dream world.
It's way more fun here.
We have teeter-totters and carousels.
And coins. Yes.
Yes. And shirts with all kinds of phrases.
That's true. I know. Yes, we do. We really should get some of those. They're funny. We're
Yeah.
but you're right. I think, and just hearing stories like the girl at the airport, or the girl that wanted to go back to college, and having people in her life that were saying no. I get so confused by those people, and it's a reminder to me that there's so many adults who act like children and haven't learned this growth mindset piece. And maybe we don't fault them for that. It was they didn't know what they didn't know. They were probably born into a chaotic environment and believe that's their normal, and they don't know that there's another side. And so we will just continue to shout from the other side and going, come over here, it's way more fun, and it's possible for each and every one of us.
Yeah. And that's why, like, when we speak about this, we are so passionate about it. And we run into dead ends with some people because they think, oh, this is just another thing on my list. And but it's not. Like, this is literally going to make everything on your list make more sense.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to change things that are more helpful on your list. Like, it really does make a difference in every area of your life. It's not an inconvenience to do this program. It's actually helpful.
Right. I think that's what some things we hear is, I'm too far gone. Or I'm so busy living in fight or flight mode and chaos and crisis that I don't have time. And what we say to that is, this business isn't, or this program isn't taking time away. It's actually giving you your life back.
Yeah.
And so if you are in a place where you've been living in that drama world, and I'm not saying dramatic, I'm just saying the world of drama, because it starts with the D, and I like the world of dreams, that is, but it's chaos. It's, it's negativity, it's confusion, it's all of that stuff. Just know that there is another side, and we can teach you the same exact tools that we've used ourselves and have taught our survivors, and it will help you too.
Yeah. I think a lot of our survivors have a fear going in that maybe they won't be able to dream, or maybe their dream isn't really like everybody else. Maybe they really are different, like they have thought. And I promise you, if God chose to make you and give you all the talents that you have a beautiful future ahead of you if you want to live in it. Like, there's nobody out there who doesn't have a beautiful dream within them. So you're not going to be disappointed. In fact, you're going to be wowed, every single one of you.
Yeah. And we're not even saying in 3 months you're going to go from like 0 to 10, but
Right.
wouldn't 0 to 2 be cool?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even saying that once you're out of 90-day U-turn, like, see you later. Like, we have girls do it 2-3 times. Why? Because we're not done yet. And this is just like another onion layer unfolding. And so I think 0 to 2 would be powerfully amazing.
Yes.
And then once you know that's possible, you can go 2 to 6. And then 6 to 10. You know what I mean? So
it reminds me of like a light switch that's on a dimmer.
yeah.
When it's completely dark, but then you just raise it to a 2, you can still see things a little bit better, and then a little bit higher until you're all the way at a 10, and the whole room's illuminated and you can see everything clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. So we gave you guys a few exercises that you could do. Write them down in your journal. Take some time to really think about this for yourself. And then let us know. Let us know if you are interested in the next round of 90-day U-turn. We're brewing a retreat in this next year. And there's just so many fun, cool things, including a survivor book, for like a chapter book that we're going to offer to the graduates. So just know that this is a really fun place, and we invite you to be a part of it if you are interested. So you can learn more about joining the waitlist for 90-day U-turn and being in contact with us. You can also learn more about Rachel's story. Down below, you'll see her book is linked below, as well as her story on my podcast is linked below too. So if you have been listening for a while and you don't quite know Rachel's story, feel free to listen back and get to know some of those details, because I think knowing her story makes her growth, like, if you see her now, you would never have it's just mind-blowing. So
it really is. I've been getting so many messages lately of people saying, I don't even recognize you. Like,
yeah.
You're doing so great. Guys, this is why, right here. This is it. This shifting.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's the best thing ever. This is why okay, we're going to stop now. We just can't.
Seriously.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? And I'll end with an I declare.
Oh, yeah, don't get me started again. We're good.
I
We
know.
spoke all we need to.
Big exclamation point at the end.
Yes.
Okay. This is a good one that just popped up. I declare it is not too late to accomplish everything God has placed in my heart. I have not missed my window of opportunity. God has moments of favor in my future. He is preparing me right now because he is about to release a special grace that helps me accomplish that dream. This is my time. This is my moment. I receive it today. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome day, you guys, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.